cozy friends, and welcome to the third week of Vlogmas. Today I am ready to start swatching for some of my 2025 cast-ons. Last week's vlog was finishing up a hibernated work in progress so that I could clear my whip stash a little bit and get prepared for some new cast-ons. There is nothing more exciting about the new year than fresh starts and new projects, so I've been planning my Make 9 and all the projects that I'm really excited to make for next year, as well as be intentional with the yarns that are already in my stash and what I could make with them. When I gauge swatch, I always take a photo of my swatch and use the markup feature on the iPhone to write down what yarn it is on the photo as well as what needle I used, because my gauge swatches are completely useless in like a week or two when I forget what needle I swatched with. And it's also really helpful to just use that search feature in the camera roll to be able to find when you swatch that yarn. First, let's start with the project I've already swatched for that will be a quick and easy one. As you saw in the intro to this video, I was swatching some cotton DK yarn, 8-ply yarn, for a rainy day tee by Sari Nordlund. When I bought this yarn, it was going to be for the Ballard tee, and I also was planning to knit the rainy day tee in a lavender color, but I kind of just fell out of love with that idea after I swatched for it. It didn't feel right for me, didn't feel like it would be the right style. But today I got on Instagram and I saw this post of a poppy tee in a rich brown color, and I just loved it. So that made me really want a brown tee that had less positive ease, that was more like tight fitting, and I really thought that the rainy day tee with that cable raglan would look beautiful in this brown color. I swatched on the recommended 3.5mm needle down here and was definitely under gauge. This 8-ply yarn suggests a 4mm needle to get a gauge of 21 stitches, and I need to get 20 stitches per 10 centimeters to meet gauge for this pattern, so I figured I would have to go up. So I also swatched up here with a 4mm, but I think the 4mm is what I'm probably going to go with for the rainy day tee, and I will be knitting it in 4 Seasons Flinders. 4 Seasons is available at all the Spotlight craft stores here in Australia, which is pretty similar to like Michael's and Joann's back in the United States for context. And this is just a 100% cotton yarn. I really love my Anchor Summer shirt from Petiteknit that I knit in a DK cotton yarn. I wear it so much already, and I think it would be really nice to have some more hand knit t-shirts in my wardrobe. I put a poll on my Instagram story today because I get to download a free pattern from Sari because of my test knit for the Belle and Sebastian pullover. The Belle and Sebastian pullover is actually out now, so I will have it linked down in the description, and I get a free pattern for test knitting for her. So I'm trying to choose between the Diona tee and the Poet tee. I am really comfortable with cables. I love cable knitting, so I think it would be very natural for me to do the Diona, but I think that the Poet tee would be a really nice challenge because I haven't done that much lace knitting, and the majority of the votes are going to Poet, so I'll probably pick that one as my free pattern. And then the second poll I did was for a Jenny jacket. The Jenny jacket has been a dream knit of mine for some time now, but I've been so undecided on whether I want to knit the V-neck or the round neck, the crew neck version of the jacket. I think that the round neck looks very classic, but it is knit bottom up, and I know a lot of people end up with fit issues because of that construction, and I would be a lot more comfortable doing the V-neck construction of top down. But today I realized, when reflecting on the poll results, which are already leaning V-neck, I realized that the V-neck is a drop shoulder construction rather than a raglan. And my favorite projects I've made for myself are all drop shoulder constructions. I really think that that is more flattering for my frame and just looks nice on me. I like a raglan, but I think I'm leaning more towards knitting more drop shoulder styles this year. So I have decided and went ahead and purchased the Jenny Jacket V-neck version today and sat down to swatch it just now. These are the yarns I'm going to be using for my Jenny jacket. This is going to be my first item that I am casting on with a mohair. Have purchased mohair for some other things on my queue. This will be my first probably cast on. I really think I want this one to be a New Year's cast on that's going to be a bit of a longer term project. I don't know how long term, but I imagine with it being a lot of ribbing, because I think the smock pattern is pretty much ribbing that gets cinched together. So I think I'm gonna have to pace myself with it. But this is the main yarn. It is a 4-ply fingering weight yarn from Bendigo Woolen Mills, which is a wool mill here in Australia, in Bendigo, Australia, outside of Melbourne. This is their luxury 4-ply in the color stone. And I'm going to be holding it with Drops Kid Silk in the color beige. And I worked on getting the first row onto the needles to swatch, but I am very confused as to how to swatch this. I literally bought the pattern so that I could have a chart to follow for the swatch, and there is no chart. It very much is just instruction, and I find it really challenging to gauge swatch ribbing or sometimes cables. It can be very confusing as to how many stitches are really in that 10 centimeters. And I'll definitely show you more as this swatch works up, but I am so very excited to get this on the needles. I feel like I'm only wanting to cast this one on first because it feels like it makes more sense for the season, but this is exciting me more. I have so much yarn and so many projects on my queue, and I really struggle with what to knit first. What order do I knit these in? But I think I need to let that go because I'm holding myself back from knitting all the things I'm dreaming of. But I think it'll be really fun to knit both of these at the same time because I'll have a stockinette to knit on when my hands really want to break from all the ribbing, but I'll have something really nice and fun and luxurious to work on as well at the same time. I am literally obsessed with how this smocking stitch is working up. It's going to kill me to not cast this on today, and I just might. But I'm gonna have to finish this swatch and block it and measure it and make sure that I'm going to get gauge on the recommended 4mm needles that I am swatching on. But how beautiful is this? I am obsessed. Also, I wanted to say I am currently watching season 5 of Virgin River. I am behind on it. I had started watching it, but it can get really stressful and hard hitting, even though it's such a soapy drama. And I love seeing knitting in movie shows and other various media, not only because it's like, oh hey, they're doing my thing, but also you can tell when the actors aren't actually knitting, and it's really, really funny to see them just like being like which is also how my husband mimics me. That makes him sound so mean, but it's just an inside joke between us. But I'm totally obsessed and having a great time knitting on my swatch, and I can't wait to cast this project on.
What? 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 Yes.
Yet another project off the needles. I am so excited. I bound off and tied off literally the loose ends on my Ranunculus blouse this morning. This is the Ranunculus sweater pattern. I will put the designer's name on the screen, and it is one of the most beloved patterns in the knitting community. It has the most projects on Ravelry, I think, of any project. So I really wanted to see what all the hype is about, and it really was a fun, quick, breezy knit. And with it being summer here in Australia, I think it will be the perfect addition to my wardrobe. I do feel so cute in this color. I absolutely love this yarn. Let me grab it. I knit this in Fibra Naturals Papyrus yarn in the color yellow, and I have yarn to spare of this. I really could have knit this longer, but I was already knitting it way longer than the pattern requests or suggests. It is quite a cropped fit on me, and if I raise my arms, these are really high-waisted shorts. So I definitely would consider adding length, but I do think that as gorgeous as it is and as fun as it is to knit, it has a more homemade, handmade look to it than a lot of the patterns I like to follow that look really almost store-bought. And when you tell people, oh, I made this, they literally don't believe you, but in a good way. I think that's why Petiteknit is so popular, because her designs are just so classic. She has her construction down to a T, and they just look so polished and professional that it doesn't look like it's handmade. So I am happy with this addition to my wardrobe, and we will see if it sticks around through 2025. But Getting this off the needles just makes me feel like casting on. And out of my 2 swatches I did, I think this one would make more sense for the weather we are in. But having just found off a cotton tee, I am thinking I am going to put this one aside because I am obsessed with the swatch for my Jenny jacket. I haven't stopped thinking about her. I just want to cast her on. So I think as a special little Christmas cast on treat to myself, I am probably going to cast on the Jenny jacket today in this vlog. Mentally, I know I should work on some of my other whips that I have on the needle, such as my Belle and Sebastian pullover, which I have made so much progress on, but have put it down since and been working on other projects. But I feel like having gotten so many things off the needles, hibernated whips out of the way, out of my whip piles, I just really am ready to cast on something new for myself. And this dream knit of mine has just been really on my mind, and since swatching it, I just want to do more of the smocking. So I'm going to get this cast on with you guys today. Seeing as this was a project planning and swatching vlog though, I also want to talk about another project plan change I've had with yarn in my stash. So if you watch my knitting podcast, you'll know that my birthday cast on was the Dagmar jacket by Petiteknit. It was a new design that came out on my birthday, and I took it as a sign, and I purchased Cascade 220 in the color 8686. It's a nice, beautiful chocolate brown. And I really do love how it looks in this design. However, Petiteknit started showing the Dagmar pullover after I had cast this on, and I kind of started second guessing which design I wanted to do, and then got approved for my test knit for Sari Nordlund, so I shifted my focus to working on that. And then by the time I was ready to pick this back up, she had actually released the Dagmar zipper, and I had a bunch of this Simply Wool worsted in the color Winnie. This is the same yarn I am using for my husband's cardigan, and when I got it on a great discount from Knit Picks, and I got a ton of it. I got more than enough for a jacket for him and myself. So I wanted to knit a quarter zip out of this for myself, and once I saw the Dagmar zipper, I felt like that was the version of the Dagmar I wanted the most, and I've been wanting to knit a quarter zip, so it all just makes sense. So my plan for my Dagmar now is going to be to knit the Dagmar quarter zip in my Simply Wool, and that's going to be on my Make 9 for 2025, which is a whole video I plan to film very, very soon. And as far as my Cascade 220, I think I will plan to make a different jacket with this. I think the cardigan number 9 is the one I'm thinking of. It has a saddle shoulder construction, and it would just be so beautiful in this color. So I feel like with these 2 yarns, I'm staying true to the intentions I envision I had for them. This is still going to become a jacket, and this one is still going to become a quarter zip, but they've just been flopped around a little bit. I am really excited for all of the 2025 project plans I have, but especially excited for this New Year's and Christmas cast on. It's obviously a little early for my Christmas cast on, but since I have to wait to open all these gifts under the tree, I might as well treat myself to this. Also, I don't know if I mentioned it, but this yarn is absolutely so soft. I'm so excited to wear this. It doesn't feel itchy whatsoever, and with this being my first time knitting up mohair, I'm really excited to see how it will wear on my skin. I feel like it's also a pretty low risk way of trying mohair for the first time because it is in a V-neck cardigan, so it's not going to be up around my neck, and I can see how my skin reacts to mohair. I know it's different for everyone. The last thing I wanted to mention before we get to casting on is I feel like I shame myself so often for my plans changing with my yarn stash, but I think that there is something about planning for the yarns in your stash that is just as exciting as casting them on and knitting them. And sure, it's frustrating when you have to frog some work that you've already done, but I think it's also part of the hobby, the planning for it, the yarn shopping for it. Something new I have been doing when I'm planning for my stash is instead of thinking about my yarn and then trying to look through all the patterns on Ravelry, I look at the patterns I've favorited on Ravelry, like what things I really want to knit, and then think, do I have a yarn in stash for that? And now that I'm also open to purchasing a mohair pairing, I think that also opens up the options for my knitting projects as well, because if I have a DK weight sweater quantity but I am only looking at DK patterns, now if I'm open to purchasing a mohair, I can look at worsted weight patterns as well. So it's going to be a really interesting new era in my knitting journey, and I'm really looking forward to all of the beautiful things I'm going to be making next year. And without any further ado, let's get casting on. I have made so much progress on my Jenny jacket. I have just been pouring myself into this back yoke, and it is quite funny to me that before this past week I had never done German short rows. I just hadn't stumbled upon them in a pattern I'd knit yet, and now I have done them twice this week, both on the shawl collar for my husband's cardigan as well as on this back yoke. And it's actually not that hard. I thought it would be a lot harder. It was really just learning the double stitch, and I will say this cast on was one of the trickier, if not the trickiest cast on I've ever done, because you have to cast on a ton of stitches. And my method for that was, as I cast them on, I put a stitch marker every 50 stitches once I got to that point, so that I was able to keep track as I did it. And then I left the stitch markers in at every 50 increment, so that by the end I could count the stitches a lot easier instead of having to count to over 100 and something multiple times. And then you have to break the yarn after doing that initial stitch cast on, and then you slip your stitches back to a certain point and begin doing short rows back and forth from that point to work all the way out. At this point, I just finished working my short rows. I just worked the last 2 stitches from it. I am just in love with this design. I am in awe. I can't stop staring at it and squishing it, and it's just gorgeous. This is going to probably be the prettiest thing I've ever made. Sorry, book club cardigan, because I really love that knit as well. But it also having this fuzzy halo of mohair is just making it all the more beautiful, and it's just a pleasure to knit on. I haven't found it that tricky either to manage having 2 yarn balls thus far. I think I also mentioned having trouble tracking if I was on gauge or not, and I actually found an entire Petiteknit video from the person who makes her tutorials exactly on how to count your gauge swatch in the Jenny pattern. Like, there is just a repertoire of available information for Petiteknit patterns. It is so readily available and makes it so much more accessible. I really appreciated that. So far, I am perfectly on gauge for this, and I am knitting the size large. And I think it is interesting that these 2 yarns together that are both a shade of beige in my opinion are creating a bit of a grayish fabric, but I love it. I'm really happy with it. I think that this color is going to look so very good on me, and I cannot wait to wear this. I really love casting on a new project and feeling like it is a special little treat for yourself. I think this honeymoon phase part of a project is the most exciting, second only to the finishing bind off of a project before you weave in those ends. That moment of bliss is so exciting. I would love to hear down in the comments if you are doing any sort of Christmas or New Year's cast on for yourself as a little treat. Hi cozy friends, time for a bit of a whip update. I'm so excited to be calling the Jenny jacket a whip instead of a cued project. This is literally working up like such a dream. As I said when I last updated you, I have now finished the short rows for the back and have made it a few rows into working on the back panel. And I'm having so much fun working on it. As someone who has shared that I have a love-hate relationship with ribbing, I do think this is helping me grow as a knitter already. I'm just constantly reminding myself to relax my shoulders as I rib. I think that with ribbing, I can really tense up, especially with a silky yarn. I think that's something I haven't seen people talk about, but I do think with silky yarns, I struggle to tension and I have to like wrap a few times, but I am just trying to consciously remind myself to relax. And this has been such a comfort project. I think that it being the holidays and us living abroad, not being near family, and just feeling, you know, kind of alone out here, this is exactly what I needed to have to work on and pour myself into. It has brought me so much joy, and I have no regrets for casting on my little Christmas or New Year's cast on well before Christmas. With as much as I am enjoying working on this, I really do think that I'll work on it a lot faster than I originally thought. I thought that this would be a longer term whip with it being a like kind of a ribbed pattern. I thought that I would want to, you know, put it down often, but I don't want to put it down. I actually want to keep working on it constantly. So I am quite hopeful that this will be done well before fall so that I can wear it in that transitional season and get a lot of wear out of it as soon as it gets off the needles. I love how I'm already talking about that and I'm just getting started, but I also love to be intentional with the timeline of my knits. I love to think about, like, is this going to be done in the season it is meant for, or is it going to be more of a working on it through the season it's meant for? And I love to do both. But with it being summer here in Australia, while everyone in the Northern Hemisphere is knitting winter knits and all of my YouTube feed is what I'm knitting this winter, I have been very inspired to just keep working on my winter knits instead of feeling locked into only working on summer knitwear. And by the time I'm done with some of these wintry projects, it will actually be fall here, so that's really exciting. I am actually so thankful and proud of myself for doing this vlogmas situation. I really went into it trying to take it low-key and not over-promise, because I can get very overwhelmed and overbooked as a mom to a toddler, a stay-at-home mom. Like, sometimes my videos have to take the back burner to taking care of my son, and that's just this season of life. But it is so cool that I have this community and felt like I could be connected to the world and the knitting community and share the joy and Christmas spirit, as well as feel like this is also filling my cup. My favorite comments are always finding out what you're knitting on while watching and knowing that my videos are bringing you as much comfort as they bring me. I actually am in disbelief of how much this channel has grown this year. My goal towards the beginning of the year, when I knew we were going to be moving abroad and that I would not be able to run my business like I was in the US. If you are not aware, when we were in the US, I owned a candle business. It was a product-based business where I was shipping things, and I was not going to be able to do that while moving abroad. And I've always dreamed of doing YouTube. So I was like, this is my time. I'm going to start making videos. My goal was to just post more consistently. And in my mind, and I think maybe I wrote it down somewhere, but in my mind, my dream goal for this year was to try to get 1,000 subscribers. And numbers don't matter that much. It's really just about, I feel like, the community you're building. But I do think that in my mind, that was like an unrealistic, huge goal. And to have blown that out of the water in the way we have is crazy. I can't believe there are over 7,000 of us knitting together. And I just want to thank you so very much for being here and watching my videos and sharing your knitting journey along with me. I want to thank you so very much for following along this Vlogmas journey. This is going to be the last vlog of December, but I am going to be posting a knitting podcast next weekend. So keep your eye out for that and make sure you tap subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss future cozy videos. Thank you so very much for spending your time unraveling with me again today, and I will be wishing you a very cozy week. Bye guys.